the one story that I'll share to kind of encourage people to come out of their shell a little bit in their personal brand, despite being a 9-to-5 employee, is I thought that people would judge me for posting on LinkedIn. I thought that they would think I was really weird. And I actually got the opposite response. It was actually...
Hi everyone, welcome back. If you're like me, you've probably always seen LinkedIn as this professional work environment where you put your shiny shoes on and get yourself a job or a client. And while it is true, there is a person that makes LinkedIn fun. Lena Sesardic is a self-proclaimed LinkedIn baddie. She left her corporate world twice and now breaks all the conventions on LinkedIn, builds an audience, and most importantly, a business. Her clients claim they're pulled by her energy, and I hope you will too. Let's talk LinkedIn and other things with Lena. I want to start with the perspective of a 9-to-5 employee. And you've been in the position that you left your corporate world, but you already had started building your personal brand and then came back to the corporate world. And now I've been in that position that I want to build my personal brand, but there are bosses, colleagues, other employees looking at me. How do you handle that discomfort? Do you feel like, some companies may think like you represent the company, your personal brand is like a property of the company maybe. How would you handle that if you want to build your personal brand, but you are employed?
It's a really good question. And I think I have been in that situation in a way. So when I first quit my job, when I first quit corporate in Feb 2020, I didn't have a personal brand. I was kind of a regular 9-to-5 employee. I had never really looked outside of my job. And that was when I started, building an audience, posting content, networking, and all that kind of stuff. And then I did that for 19 months. And then I went back into my corporate job. And so I had a personal brand. So that was when I went and worked in a company and I already had a personal brand where I was creating content. I was sharing, sometimes controversial opinions that were very, it's very me, but also very, not necessarily perfectly aligned with what I do at the company, right? It was like different topics and stuff. Not that I was going against what they were doing. But the slight difference there was I was actually brought on as a consultant. So I didn't start out as an employee. I went full-time the following January and then I ended up quitting anyway. But so I'd come in as a consultant, which was a little bit different. So to be fair, not being like a full employee is a little different. And I think the other big difference for me was I already had the personal brand. So the way that I look at it is, what really is the bigger priority? Is it my job or is it my personal brand? And I know that in this climate with all these layoffs and everything, I know that we don't have the luxury all the time to think about like, our personal brand. But I do think that that's the better long-term play. So the way that I handled the judgment, because later on I was also an employee working at a company, talking about my personal brand. And I think the biggest way that I dealt with that judgment is just focused on what is the actual benefit of my personal brand, and these people who I feel like are judging me, is that going to change my overall outcome in my life? And I think a lot of the time we care what people think who don't really have the ability to actually improve our lives, right? And so it's a little tricky with the employer, but I think the other piece is I think we always assume that people are judging us. And so maybe like the one story that I'll share to kind of encourage people to come out of their shell a little bit in their personal brand, despite being a 9-to-5 employee, is when I got into my company, I was a consultant, sure, but I was still treated like an employee. I thought that people would judge me for posting on LinkedIn. I thought that they would think I was really weird and that I thought I was like a show off or something, and I would really cringe. And so a lot of the times I would go into a meeting after I had obviously posted on LinkedIn that morning, and I would be worried that people were going to mention something or be weird about it. And I actually got the opposite response. It was actually, I found that I got more like respect and interest from my coworkers because they saw me as someone who had opinions. I was sharing things outside of my job. I cared about my craft. I was well connected. I knew how to create content. They respected me, right? Yes, there were some people who probably found it annoying. And, there's always going to be those people, though, right? And I think the big thing for me was it was actually, again, a respect thing, but also an icebreaker thing because I was able to create relationships with people at my company outside of the corporate setting. Because on LinkedIn, it's a little more relaxed, right? Because we're not on the work chat. So it's like we can actually chat about something a little bit casual, right? Like it's not like we have to. So you can actually get to know people and people get to know you. So I found that I was actually able to build relationships better within my company. So maybe this is kind of like an alternative view that'll give people some more confidence that sometimes, like, just because no one's saying anything, it doesn't mean that they're judging. It could just be that they're silently enjoying it,
Hmm.
right? Because that was a lot of my coworkers. They didn't comment, they didn't like, and they were just like, "Oh, I love your post today." And I'm like, "Oh, really?" Like, I thought that was really weird that I posting, but they're like, "No, like it's so funny and it's so interesting and all this stuff." So yeah, we assume the worst.
I guess there is a correlation to what happens on LinkedIn itself as well, right? People come to you and appreciate what you're doing with your content, and they notice you and they start conversation. And actually, I wanted to know, is, LinkedIn is a very salesy platform by design, right? It's a business platform, so the amount of cold messages that you probably and I definitely receive in hundreds is enormous. Um, how is in your case, do you also rely on cold messaging to your audience, to people who, let's say, commented on your stuff or engage with you in any other way, and you reach out to them, or you rely solely on your content to bring people and start conversations with you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I strive to use my content to bring people in. I don't do any cold outreach, and the reason
Hmm.
for that is because I personally just don't like being solicited through cold outreach. It's not something I enjoy, and so I kind of figure my audience probably doesn't love that either. I also find that when you're doing cold outreach, you're only really trying to hit the people who are currently in the market for a solution,
Hmm.
but the beauty with content is you can nurture people no matter where they are in their buyer journey. So I have people who come work with me after following me for 2 weeks, but some people work with me after following me for 6 months because they just weren't ready. So I'm like nurturing and speaking to all these people. So generally, I think using content to bring people in and bring that awareness in, I think is just a better long-term strategy, but I don't solely rely on content. There are some like LinkedIn coaches out there who are like, "Oh, like we'll, get clients in your DMs every day." And we all want clients in our DMs. And yes, like I get clients in my DMs, my clients get their clients in their DMs, but I do believe that there needs to be also some sort of like a warm outreach strategy. Like we
Hmm.
can't all just sit here on our throne waiting for people to just get into our DMs, ready to pay us. There will be those people, but especially in the early stages of the business, I think it's a combination, right? Like I
Hmm.
think for me, it's always warm outreach over cold outreach. So I take like a very community building approach to like lead generation, which some people don't really do that. They really just focus on kind of the hard pitching. When you're building community and you're just basically maximizing conversations, that's when you can surface more opportunities in addition to hoping that hopefully, your content brings some people in. But I
Hmm.
think there's a little bit more work that people can do just to engage their community and surface those opportunities.
Can you go a little bit more into what does warm outreach mean to you? Like, how do you make it warm? Meaning, at what stage, after how many likes and comments is it becoming sort of warm? And then how do you utilize it in the actual message?
Totally, totally. Yeah. So, I mean, cold outreach is really anytime you're reaching out to someone cold, it's like they probably don't know who you are. You don't really know much about them. You've never interacted with them. So, this is kind of like a first touch, right?
Hmm.
And people are usually pretty apprehensive. But warm is anything where people are already aware of you. And I think that's the big advantage here with content and personal branding. I saw this really great post of a woman who, Laura Erdem. She's like really big on LinkedIn. She's very authentic. I love her. She's very casual. And she was saying that a lot of the reason why she believes in personal branding, she said it so well, is because by the time people approach to work with her, they already know her. Like they already feel like they know her. There's that familiarity, there's that trust. And that makes this whole warm outreach situation easier because, for example, for me, it's like I have people following me every day on multiple platforms. Let's say LinkedIn, for example. So people who are following me, people who are viewing my profile, people who are engaging with my content, people who are connecting with me. These are all people who are warm because they already know me and they know what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And then like, you're just kind of layering on the touch points, right? Like you're engaging with each other's content, you're talking in the DMs. And I feel like a lot of people, they focus a lot on the sale and they're very just like, okay, I need to drive the sale. But the way that I approach these kind of warm outreaches, community building is really putting the relationship first and really just focusing on almost like feedback over sales. Because a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the time, if you just go straight in for a sale and the person says no, not only have you lost that sale, but you've actually lost the opportunity to get feedback. And the feedback is also important because that's how you qualify the person, right? To see, are they actually a right fit from an ideal client perspective? And that's where cold outreach, I think, falls short because it's literally almost like you're stopping someone on the street. You're like, do you need this, headphone right now? And they're like, no, I don't. And then it's over. There's no conversation. You don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know where they're going. Why don't they need a headphone? Should I stop this type of person again on the street? You're never going to find that out. But if you're just having a conversation, you're like, oh, like, when did you start your business? Like, where else are you marketing your business? Like, what are your goals? Do you feel like you're going to hit them? You can start to understand, like, are they my ideal client? They respond, you get more information. And then you can, through the long term, improve your sales and marketing. But the warm outreach is like, anywhere where you have engaged, they are basically aware of you and what you do. And it really depends on the person how fast you like. The beauty with warm outreach and these warm engagements is sometimes the person will just voluntarily qualify themselves because as you're having the relevant
Mm-hmm.
conversation, they're like, actually, you know what? Like, I do have this problem. Like, can you help me? So you actually don't have to sell. I think the key is to steer the sales conversation. I'm saying sales conversation because we're not trying to just prioritize the sale, but we're trying to like steer conversations with our prospects to talk about that area where it's natural that our services will just naturally come up, or it won't be a total shock when we're like, hey, I actually work with my clients with this specifically. Do you want to chat about working together? So it's about making that ask easier, like making it easier to ask for that call because you
Mm-hmm.
feel like you already have that.
I wanted actually to take a step back, and it applies to LinkedIn, of course, but it also applies to other platforms where you come in with some following, some experience, some friends and family or coworkers in your audience, and then what you try to offer or what your personal brand should stand for doesn't correspond to them. That's not your target audience, right? And you talk about reprogramming your audience or reprogramming your feed sort of to fit that target audience. How would you go about it, LinkedIn or otherwise, in order to do it? Would it be through like one-on-one finding the right people, or just posting the right content and wait for the other ones to slowly fall off?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I have a lot of clients who approach me with these situations. Either they have the LinkedIn account where it's all their old coworkers, or they have the Instagram account where, it's like, oh, I just have my family on there. It's my new business. And I mean, I personally like to, especially in the early days. So I used to be a product manager in tech for 5 years. And I don't know if you've heard of the term do things that don't scale in the
So, yeah.
beginning. So I'm a really big fan of like doing things that don't
Mm-hmm.
scale in the beginning. That's how you get the feedback. That's how you learn. That's how you like get yourself out there. So my personal approach is there is a big one-on-one element just because I think in the beginning, it's just so important to have those conversations. Because I think the biggest challenge that I see across business owners, if I have to really just kind of summarize it at the high level, is knowing how to engage with their community, with their audience, with their ideal clients. A lot of business owners I find are scared to reach out and chat with their ideal clients because they feel like, oh, like I either need to like sell to them and go away, or like it feels awkward to have a
Mm-hmm.
conversation with the ideal prospect without like talking about a sale, because we're so kind of, we think sales are just like we ask them to buy and they buy or they don't, but it's actually like it's a longer dance. And so I do believe that like a one-on-one approach is important, but also complemented with the whole kind of content piece. But then there's also the profile, right? And so I think in terms of, if I had to talk about like LinkedIn specifically, it would really be like the profile, the network, and the content, because
Mm-hmm.
what you're doing with your profile is, and this is a lot of people miss this step, is when you're trying to reprogram, and this is with anything, right? Instagram, whatever, you have to optimize your profile and make it so that it attracts the right people and it repels the wrong people. Then you want to make sure that you're like replenishing your network. So like you said, there's a one-on-one element there. You're actually going out there, finding people one by one in the beginning so you can understand who the right people are, having those conversations. And then you're using your content to, again, attract people who are like-minded. And the thing that's particularly good about LinkedIn is the comments features is such a good way to get discovered,
Mm-hmm.
because whenever you comment, your comment also lands in the feed. And so that's where you can actually start to kind of use a bit more of a scalable approach, because as you're creating content, you start seeing these different pockets of content. Like there'll be, I don't know, a big creator's post about something, and now there's a whole sea of people who are commenting on there who are probably relevant, right? So maybe you find some of those people, you engage with them, and then the more you engage, the more kind of like this snowball effect starts of you
Mm-hmm.
being in the right kind of circle. And then it just compounds, right? Because you go from being like your whole feed is like, these people aren't relevant. Let me add, okay, let's add 5 people. Let's add another 5 people. But as you kind of, and then as people start following you, because you have this profile and they're just like, oh, like this person talks about this in this way, I want to follow them. It's slowly like the one-on-one piece of what you're doing shrinks a little because people
Mm-hmm.
start discovering you. I think that's what it is. It's like until you get to the point where people are really discovering you all the time, you have to go really heavy on the one-on-one. And then later you can pare back the one-on-one. I still believe in, like, I always do one-on-one no matter how like big I get on whatever platform, but it's like you can do less of it because again, people are discovering you.
Yeah. As a person with a background in sales marketing, I think that why people don't like to talk with their audience one-on-one is because they have like preconceptions as to what the audience actually needs, and then being confronted with and proven wrong can be very disheartening, you know. And but actually keeping with that sort of marketing angle at it, your profile is like your landing page, right? Like your value proposition in your bio and so on. What are the most important parts of profile when you optimize it, and how do you optimize it for the result that you want?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I definitely look at the profile as a landing page or like a funnel or something like that. And I mean, I generally recommend people focus on kind of like the top part of the profile, anything that's like above, like the about section and above, because that's what people really look at mostly. People aren't really scrolling all the way down. Like I have a lot of people who are like, what do I do with my skills? And it's like, just try to look make it look clean. But a lot of people are not going to scroll down to your profile because they're busy, they're scrolling through a lot of profiles. So it's really that top part. And so if I had to kind of really simplify the LinkedIn profile, the most important part is, in my opinion, the LinkedIn profile picture and the headline, because those are the two pieces of information that you can see on your profile without being on your profile. So in the search results, in the feed, when you send a connection request, those are basically the two things on your profile that you use to hook people in. And a lot of the time people will decide to follow you or not, or connect with you based on your picture and your headline. So like if you don't have a picture, I'm not really going to trust you. If your picture isn't really clear, if you don't look like a fun person in your picture, like I don't know. Sometimes I'm just like, you look really like strict and like, I don't know. I just don't want to, so I think human faces, especially friendly, always is so powerful. And then the headline, it's just the thing that you can see about the person, right? It's really kind of like your one liner. And I know that's like the hardest one to optimize, but just really loading the front of the headline with something compelling, something that's different, that's going to stop the scroll. It's actually a hook, right? I think a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people waste their headline with just like a title, but you have to make it something compelling. Like what's going to catch someone's eye? What's unexpected? What's like a number? Maybe it's like social proof. Maybe it's a funny phrase. Maybe it's an emoji, like something that is really going to catch people in. And then on the profile, the banner is really important. So that visual at the top, that's like your chance to handle objections, share social proof, show your personality, promote a free resource, promote a program. Like it's like visual real estate, and you get people to keep scrolling down your profile basically from your banner. And then from there, like obviously the about section, talk about yourself in a way that doesn't sound robotic, clearly states how you help your ideal clients. And then featured section also very important because that's basically your conversion point. Can people book a call with you? Is there a free resource? Is there anything that builds your authority? Maybe a case
Mm-hmm.
study or something like that. Maybe there's like, I don't know, a magazine that you were in, some kind of, media or something like that. But those are kind of the main parts. I don't really recommend people get too crazy with the other parts. There's like a link at the top of your profile that you can add now, which I think is like handy too, maybe for like a free resource or like book a call or something. But those are really the main parts I think that need to be optimized.
Yeah, I actually wanted to ask you about the last thing. As you mentioned the magical word funnel, and yeah, your profile is part of the funnel, right? And then in every good funnel, the call to action is the key. I want to know, how do you look at your funnel, and where does your profile and where the profile leads, so your free masterclass, how does go into your whole funnel idea and design?
Sure, yeah. So, the way that the funnel works for the profile is there's actually multiple calls to action, and I call these kind of like conversion points, like points on your profile where basically people could potentially convert. And you can actually cut the funnel a lot because if you're like, especially if you're posting content, because again, people are then discovering you through your content, they're learning about you, and then they're going to your profile as kind of like an additional check, right? And so, one of the places where a call to action and a conversion point could happen could be as soon as the LinkedIn headline,
Mm-hmm.
which has happened to me before. I had one headline that was like it was like a unique headline. I shared a statistic, and then I had a call to action: DM me this keyword if you want to learn more. And I booked a bunch of clients in January from that headline. And one guy actually like literally did not, I don't think he even read my about section. He literally just responded straight to the headline. We booked a call and he signed on in like 3 days. So there are many different places you can actually put calls to action in your profile, right? So headline, I mentioned the banner. That's another place you advertise your program, advertise booking a call. Your featured section, again, that's literally the place where you can get people to click on an external link. And so the featured section, then again, at the about section at the end, you want to have a call to action. So I think it's like, and at as many parts of your profile as possible, have a call to action, but make sure that like, think about the journey. So for example,
Mm-hmm.
for me, someone's going to discover my content. They're going to look at my profile picture and my headline. They're going to see in my headline that I talk about helping service-based business owners get clients on LinkedIn while showing up authentically. That's going to interest them. They're now going to go onto my profile. They're going to look at my banner where right now I'm advertising my LinkedIn Baddie program. Then they're going to keep reading, and they're going to see that in my featured section, they can actually purchase the Baddie program. And so these are all, and then in the about section, for this group program, I didn't do it, but maybe for the next one, it's like I talk about the Baddie program in the about section. And again, call to action. So it's like at every point. So as the person's going down your funnel journey, like a landing page, they can either convert right at the hero at the top where it's like, I'm ready, Or maybe it's after they've read a case study in the featured section. Maybe it's after they have heard your story in the about section. It's like that part of the landing page where it's like the creator, the picture of the person. It's like,
Yeah.
I used to suck at this and now I rock. And that's why I help people. And you know what I mean? So those are all the sections on your profile. And I think the key is, you know, make sure there are multiple calls to action that go together. Again, not trying to promote 5 things, but ask people to book a call with you like 3 times. It's the multiple buttons across the landing page, and that's how you're increasing your conversions.
I was smirking because you mentioned your body program, and I absolutely love the name. And
I'm glad.
regarding that, I wanted to ask you, because it seems to me at least that it reflects your personality. It comes very natural to you. But I want to know how much is your persona online calculated to stand out, and how much it is just you, and maybe what to do if someone doesn't have such a energetic personality as you.
That's a really, really good question. Yeah, it is the one thing that I've kind of created so far in my entrepreneurial career that feels the most on brand to me, and just it's kind of like my like signature thing that I've created. And it's a bit of a risk because I feel like sometimes like LinkedIn Baddie program, like either you love it or you hate it. So it's like a bit of a risky experiment I'm running. But yeah, to answer your question, how much of my online personality really is me versus like staged? I mean, it's an interesting question because like I really do believe in showing up transparently. I really do try my best to show up authentically. I try to share the dark side. I try to share as much as I can, but it's impossible for all of us to be fully transparent, right? Like it would really hurt us, especially on like TikTok, where it's just like there are so many haters. It's like there are some things that are just it's just too much, right? But I do believe though that as a creator, you do have some sort of like a stage persona. I think it's unavoidable. And actually one of my clients does this really well, where she has like a whole persona on TikTok. It's really cool. She's actually a little more introverted. Like you would never guess it, but in her content, she kind of comes out as this different person. And I think Beyonce does the same thing. Actually, she has like a stage persona because I think it can get very damaging mentally if you don't have some sort of a separation. And I think it can get a little bit intense for people. So for me, I mean, yeah, like I don't think my online persona is like 100% me. There are parts, of course, that like I just can't share because they're really private. But for the most part, it pretty much is quite accurate just because I do look at my content as like a self-expression. So in terms of the way that I am and the way that I act, I think all of that is accurate. And yeah, for people who don't have as much energy as me, well, I'll tell you, having as much energy as me is actually not necessarily a good thing because sometimes I get carried away with what I feel like doing. So for example, I love Instagram stories. I love talking. As we talked about, you were just like, I hope she talks a lot. I'm like, yes, I do. So literally like, give me a stage and I'll talk for 8 hours. Like I literally don't have a problem, but it's actually a bad thing because recently I was doing a lot of talking head videos in my Instagram stories just because I get so excited. I'm like, hey guys, like I'm going to show you this and then that and all this stuff. And I asked for feedback to my community recently because I do this all the time, at least once a month, where I'm like, hey, how are you liking the Instagram stories? Like, what are you seeing? What do you love? What do you hate? And one of the women actually said, you talk a lot in your talking head, like I skip right past them. And it was like, it stung because I genuinely love talking with my audience. And like, it's like something that I'm doing for me almost more so. So it's kind of like a little embarrassing because it's like you're the person on the stage like having fun and people are just like, oh, can you just get off stage? And you're like, okay, sorry. So sometimes too much energy is actually too much for the audience, and I just end up creating too much because I get carried away. I think my biggest honestly tip is like just be yourself. Like I used to feel like I had to even have like more energy on TikTok. Like if you see some of my TikTok videos from like last year, I really like, I'm starting the TikTok videos with like 3 tips for your LinkedIn headline. And it's like, I don't talk like that. I have high energy, but I'm
Mm-hmm,
not
mm-hmm.
that like informational, like infomercial type of person, right? But if you look at my TikTok videos right now, it's like I'm not really smiling a lot of the time when I'm talking. It's only when I get into a point that I get animated. And so even I have had the pressure of feeling like I have to show up like this clown because
Mm-hmm.
everyone else is super high energy. So I think the biggest tip, honestly, is like just don't try to be anyone else because there are people out there who want you. There are literally people out there who would rather die than work with me because I will just like, they will like just fall apart from how much I talk. And they want to talk with someone who's really quiet. They want to work with someone who's more introspective. They're more analytical. There are people out there who need exactly the way that you are. And when you change that, you're going to burn yourself out because we can't be someone else. But also, you're not going to serve those people who really need you because they want the way that you are, whatever that is, right? So I think just kind of permission to be yourself and know that the right people will gravitate towards that.
I love it. I love it. I heard from one of my guests recently that, yeah, do it in a way that you're able to do it for a long term. Because if you're
Exactly.
not able to keep it up, then what kind of business will you have, right?
Totally. Yeah.
It's actually a great segue. You talked about TikTok, and I wanted to ask you about it. You seem like a video first person, maybe because you like to talk so much, and it's interesting that you actually talk on a lot of platforms, on most of the available platforms. I don't know if you're on the Threads yet or not.
No, I'm not on Threads yet. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't jump on that one. It was tempting, but
Not yet. No, you're gonna be swayed. Like, but anyway, so you are a video first person, but you talk on those other platforms about LinkedIn and about being good and successful on LinkedIn. How is it working out? How is the business coming from other platforms, or is it just exposure purposes and you try to drive people to your LinkedIn profile?
yeah, that's a good question. So basically the way, and this is kind of like my omni-channel strategy, I guess, like across my multiple channels is, so I'm on LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, and I have my email list. So those are kind of like my 4 channels, if you will. And so LinkedIn is very much a selling platform. So that's
Mm-hmm.
where, it's a visibility platform too, but it's like you sell. Instagram is the same. It's your sales platform. That's where you sell in your Instagram stories. There's some visibility, of course, with Reels, but like that's also where you sell.
Mm-hmm.
TikTok is a bit of a different platform. I'm not saying you can't sell from TikTok, but like TikTok, the challenge is you're always usually being exposed to new audiences. And so they don't necessarily have that trust yet. And so I typically primarily use TikTok as my visibility platform. And so what ends up happening is because I have my link in bio in there, a lot of people will end up just going into my link in bio and just seeing how to work with me from TikTok. Or what I'm seeing a lot of is people will just naturally migrate over to my LinkedIn or my Instagram because my Instagram is connected to my TikTok. And
Mm-hmm.
in the top of my TikTok profile, I actually tell people to follow me on Instagram just because it's connected. I would tell them to follow me on LinkedIn, but I want to make, I like, it's very native to connect the Instagram to
Yeah, yeah.
TikTok and you can click it. And a lot of people I know are used to following people on Instagram for TikTok. So I want to kind of take advantage of that. And that was the reason I went on Instagram actually, because I wanted to take advantage of that part of the kind of flow. And so what typically ends up happening is people will discover me on TikTok and then they will find me on other platforms through my link tree, and then they'll get on my email list through various kind of like free resources or stuff like that. So I find that people flow to the other
Mm-hmm.
platforms,
Mm-hmm.
even if I'm about to start doing things in my Instagram stories to try and kind of prompt people to follow me more on LinkedIn. But they're funneling already, I find. Yeah.
And I noticed that you have very inconsistent amount of views on TikTok, but you are posting very consistently. Do you see like one of your videos? I think went in for my standards mega viral when it has 1.5 million views and it talks about LinkedIn. I think that's amazing. Do you see a huge correlation between the amount of views and the business that comes out of it, or it's just conversion to followers and it's great sort of vanity metric, but doesn't necessarily convert directly to business, or you cannot track it really?
Yeah. So the challenge with TikTok is, I mean, in general, attribution is always hard in terms of like where did the sale really come from, and TikTok is challenging because um, videos will go off even later. So if someone, for example, applies to work with me today, it doesn't have to be because they watched my recent TikTok video. It could be because they saw something from last year, right? So it's kind of hard to see. I have to really ask people what they saw and what converted them. But in terms of virality on TikTok, I mean, it's never correlated to business with me. It's never the only time that I will ever care about views or like I care about engagement in terms of comments and shares
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. But like even likes, the only time I'll care about that is if I'm doing a brand deal and the goal is brand awareness. And I'm creating
Mm-hmm.
a video for a company and they want to have as much visibility as possible, which means we want views and likes, right?
Yeah.
But for my own content, I actually like it's actually the opposite. Like viral videos, I find again, mostly they're hitting people who don't know you yet. A lot of the time you gain a lot of followers for the wrong reason. Like the 1.5 million views TikTok video is a tutorial for how to update your profile picture on LinkedIn, which is something that everyone wants to do. And so a lot of my TikTok audience, for example, is people who use LinkedIn for job searching.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's completely irrelevant to me, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of the time virality just brings in the wrong people. And so I'm not really like I don't, yeah. It's fun to go viral, but it doesn't translate into business because usually the content that converts is very niche. It's like a very niche problem. You don't get a lot of engagement because you're selling. And so I found that like even my coach, she signed a bunch of clients from TikTok last year and her views were under 1,000 for every video.
There you go.
Yeah. So I think it's just reaching the right people, with the right message, more important than how many people you're reaching.
I agreed. I wonder, among all those platforms, how much stuff can you actually repurpose? Sure, short form video you can do, but how much other like written content into Instagram carousels? How much do you repurpose, and how much do you have to be platform specific with your content?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I do a lot of repurposing. So I'll repurpose my TikToks directly to LinkedIn, Instagram. I'll take off the watermark.
Hmm.
There are certain things I do to make because there's repurposing directly, kind of what you said, like repurposing, like literally just posting the videos on other platforms. And then there's just like repurposing the content ideas into different formats. When it comes to purely repurposing, there are things I do to make it easier because of limitations on the platform. So, for example, for Instagram, Reels can only be up to 90 seconds. And so, if I know I'm creating a TikTok that I want to repurpose to Instagram, then I'll just record it at 90 seconds. I'm not going to do a
Hmm.
3-minute video, which is hard for me because I talk a lot. So, I always have to re record. I'm like, short bit, or I'm like, I'll just cut that part out. And then for carousels, because the Instagram limit is 10 slides, but LinkedIn is like, I think at 100 or something. So I keep my carousels to 10, just if I know they're going to go on both platforms, just to make it easier for myself. But I don't make my carousels look different for Instagram or LinkedIn. And like, I'm a really big fan of the 80-20 rule. It's like published is better than perfect, whatever. Like unless you're doing something just so bad, that's like so bad for like in the LinkedIn algorithm. I don't even know what you could do so bad with a carousel for an Instagram one. But when it comes to the other repurposing, I work really closely with my VA on like analytics and feedback and what are people asking about, and we repurpose a lot of the ideas. So, for example, what she'll do for me is if there's a TikTok video, she'll repurpose that into a carousel. And then she'll take what I'm saying in the TikTok video to kind of like add a caption. So we really try to just kind of move things around. And sometimes if there's, a message within a TikTok video that really resonated, we grab that little message and then we turn it into like a still in Instagram post, or maybe it's an Instagram story or something. So I do a lot of just repeating of the same things that are working and just
Hmm.
kind of repurposing them. So I don't feel like I'm creating that much content that's like fresh for every single platform. I definitely reuse a lot.
You mentioned a VA, and I wonder, in what other ways is having a VA, a good VA, helpful? And what parts of your workflow do you outsource, and what are your favorite? Of course, recording videos, but what else, like idea generation or analytics? What goes away and what you're keeping for yourself?
My VA is incredible. So she's not really even a VA. She's like a strategic partner. It really doesn't, the title really doesn't do her justice. But so she pretty much is like my strategic partner. So we meet twice a week and we just execute whatever it is that needs to be executed. So I kind of come together with like the overall high level plan. And then she kind of puts together the details. So for example, if it's, we're running a masterclass on this topic, then, I put together an outline for the presentation. She puts the slides together. She puts the landing page for the signups together, the emails. She kind of puts the whole funnel together, basically. So she does a lot of the work with me, but it's not just, an SOP that she completes. She really takes care of kind of the tactical level stuff for me. And the other big part, which I'm seeing the benefits of this weekly, and sometimes it can be very humbling, is just the blind spots. Because the amount of blind spots that we have as business owners, and sometimes it's honestly embarrassing, where she's like, oh, like, how come, like, why are we doing these two things together? And I'm just like, I did not, like, I would have never seen it. I'm like, obviously this makes no sense. And that's really valuable because we can just go down the wrong path. And so having someone as a strategic partner like that, in that capacity, being able to just see from the outside, like, this is too much, or like, people are going to be confused if we do these two things, that saves me a lot of time and money and effort on things that would have probably not worked out, right? So I think those are, there's a million things that she really helps me with, but that's kind of the high level of some of the ways that we work together. Yeah.
I know that on Instagram, I think it's a great case study of how you managed to monetize an audience with less than 500 followers. And it was through your group coaching, if I'm not mistaken, right? So it was not a €10 product or whatnot. But that's actually my question. So a lot of people have a skill or a knowledge like you do and want to monetize it successfully with products. Hell, there are people that do it, make millions out of being completely not service oriented but product oriented, sell while they'll sleep type of stuff. Well, while you are focused on providing a service, one-on-one coaching, group coaching, is this a conscious choice because you love to do it this way and you rather have high ticket clients that pay you more? Or it's just about the audience size and you're thinking, hey, if I grow to hundreds of thousands or millions of followers, then I will switch completely to product and I will earn the same money with less personal time involvement?
So my plan is to definitely build out more kind of passive products and stuff like that. Even with the LinkedIn Bounty program, I'm actually creating like a passive version of it. So if people just want to buy kind of the material, that's going to be an option. So definitely a fan of having, passive parts in the product offer suite. My honest opinion is I think it's a lot harder to sell a digital product than it's advertised. Because I feel like so many people, and it just makes me so mad when I see these LinkedIn posts where people are just like, it costs $0 to build a website. What's your excuse? And it's like, it's not the tools. Like, it's not the tools that's the issue. It's not the money. We all know that we can do this stuff for free. That's why it's so hard, because now it's all about the marketing. It doesn't matter if you know how to code a website. No one cares because you can just buy a website. You can literally get AI to write a website for you. So all these things that people are saying, like, oh, like, it's so easy, just build an audience and monetize and, get freedom and all this stuff. It's freaking hard. Like, it takes time. You have to build an audience. You have to create something that people actually want, and then you have to market it. So that's why for me, I found services are easier to sell. And it, at least in the beginning, and they can be higher ticket, so you can definitely scale yourself. But I think the key here is when you're doing services, you're working with people. And again, it's almost like that doing things that don't scale. You're getting feedback. You're learning about you're seeing different people. You're trying to see what the patterns are. You're understanding what their problems are. how do you solve the problem? You're learning how to solve that problem. What's the transformation? What attracts them? What retains them? And I think that's through that process. And then you're also building your clientele, right? Because you're actually serving people. Now you talk about how you're serving people, you build your audience. And I think once you have that knowledge, that's where maybe it's better to create products because you have a better idea of something that the market actually needs and how to talk about it. Because when we create something in a vacuum in our head, it doesn't work, right? And I did that. Like I self-published a book in 2020. It was in my head. I thought the market needed it. Some people liked it, but maybe I could have done a better job of marketing it. That was also the issue. But I think like I created it in a vacuum and it didn't work. But with the LinkedIn Baddie program, I didn't create it in a vacuum. I didn't just wake up one morning and say like, oh, I want to create this program. I talked to my community for like 2 weeks, day in and day out. Like I was in the DMs on Instagram for like 3 hours a day talking to my audience, right? I was like literally transcribing their voice notes. Like I have a spreadsheet with everything that they said, like 2 weeks of conversations, their word for word responses, because I wanted to learn what's the actual problem here. Why are these people not on LinkedIn? And with all that data, it's like we just ended up co-creating the program and then people bought it because it was like, oh, this is exactly what I need. It's like, yeah, obviously it's what you need because that's what you told me, right? Like I created what you told me you needed. So I think having that community and that like audience that you can actually survey, but more importantly, you can serve them, solve the problem, learn how to solve the problem, then you package it into passive offers. Like that's personally something that has worked better for me.
Okay, let's jump to my little favorite sequence that you've probably done a million times, which is the quick fire round.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a few questions and I just ask you, you can think for a long time, but I ask you to answer shortly. I know you love talking, but I will cut it off.
Yeah. Please do.
All right, let's go. Are you a team player or lone wolf?
Team player.
Take risks or carefully calculate?
Take risks, 100%.
Mobile or desktop?
Mobile for some things, desktop for some things.
Who inspires you most?
My husband.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Actor.
Same here.
I really wanted to be an actor.
What is an underappreciated business tool that you couldn't live without?
Airtable.
What's your productivity life hack?
Meditating every morning.
And what does success mean to you?
Feeling happy doing what you love with people who appreciate you.
Beautiful end. Awesome. I want to go back quickly to the Airtable. I wonder how you use it. And is it like most people would say Notion? Airtable is more spreadsheet based. How do you use it in your business or maybe it's personal life?
I'm obsessed with Airtable. So I love Airtable because, yes, it's like a spreadsheet. I like creating a lot of databases of things. So, for example, I store a lot of, for example, snippets of good LinkedIn profiles that I see, or maybe good LinkedIn posts that I've seen, or just things that are visual things that I want to kind of screenshot, or maybe it's good connection requests I've sent that I got, or like, DM sequences. I do a lot I record a lot of these things so I can share it with my clients. And so I love Airtable because it lets me record things in this spreadsheet kind of database manner, but it has this feature where you can upload attachments to the row. So you can upload. So I used to use that for my content calendar. We've moved over to Asana now, but I used to use Airtable for my content calendar because I have the mobile app. So then I can just upload my content ideas with the screenshots. Or if I sent a great connection request, take a screenshot, put it in the Airtable right away. So I use it for anything where I'm collecting information. If I'm signing people up for a wait list, onboarding forms, because you can create a form really easily once you create the table. And then the form responses go into the table. So I'll use that for like my onboarding applications forms, stuff like that. So yeah. And the free tier has a lot in it. I use the paid tier now, but the free tier is very, very powerful too. So great tool.
I have a feeling that if you monetize some of your databases, there will be probably like a ton of amazing digital products, right?
Yeah, that's on the list for sure. Yeah. And there's a lot in those Airtables. Yeah.
I bet. All right. Okay, I wanna go a little bit off the ground, and you mentioned something. I want to close off with this: that LinkedIn or your personal brand allows you to, how you called it, redefine professionalism. And I want to know what do you think the new professionalism should look like on LinkedIn or otherwise?
Yeah, I mean, I think the new professionalism is just acceptance. And this is something that I've even changed myself. A few years ago, I used to be very closed minded of what I thought was successful. And so if I ever met people who were traveling the world while working and maybe they weren't, making a ton of money that, or like making the amount of money that they should be making at this age, whatever that is, I used to be very closed minded in what I thought was successful and responsible. So I think new professionalism is just recognizing that the existing structures don't work for people, and understanding that people are allowed to create their own new style of working, and some of it might be really casual, right? And
Yeah.
some of it might be still very suited up, but I think it's just true openness. And this even goes down to like, racial equality, like neurodivergence equality, like just welcoming everyone. Because I think we've realized that the way that we've been working before doesn't work for everyone. Literally,
Hmm.
people who want to travel, people who want to take care of their babies, people who have disabilities. Like there are so many things that they don't fit into this box. And I think the new professionalism is almost just like everyone's allowed to create their own definition, kind of like within reason, as long as your level of professionalism matches the level of professionalism of the people that you're working with, right? So if someone is more comfortable being very suited up, very formal, they're allowed to do that. Like, we cannot complain about that. It's just maybe the person who really wants to, be very casual, maybe they should work together because it's not alignment, right? And so
Yeah.
just doing what's appropriate for the people around you. I think that's kind of like my definition.
I love it. Build something that we would call Career 2.0.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And on that note, thank you so much, Lena, for joining me today. It was amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, Philip, it was great chatting with you too.
Thanks a lot. Well, Lena is clearly a badass. Sorry, a baddie. And if you want to be as well, please connect with us on LinkedIn and share a pod with a friend. That will make you a badass in my book instantly. Thanks, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.